I feel like a lot of people have been saying that AEW is signing too many people, and I don't know if that's necessarily a fair and valid argument, especially when you look at AEW and how they've done things in the last few years. Yes, I think it is true that they've signed a lot of people, but I don't think that's actually a bad thing. Nor do I think it's a bad thing that WWE has brought back a lot of people. Nor do I think it's a bad thing that Impact and MLW and all of these other companies are signing talent. There is a lot of independent talent out there, and people getting jobs and working for a major TV promotion is never a bad thing. So I want to make that very clear. I think the issue actually falls in line more so to do with the failure to capitalize on what to do with these signings. Now, there's a couple different people you can argue and you can say they should have done this, they should have done that. Obviously, injuries and other things kind of come up, but one thing that I think is really necessary to discuss is kind of the fundamental issue with AEW. And this is not something where I'm giving you my opinion and saying, oh, this is an issue because Ango thinks so. Tony Khan has publicly said that the lack of TV time compared to his competitors is somewhat of an issue. So he's trying to do his best. It's obviously a challenge, trying to do right by all of the talent that are signed. That is naturally an issue that AEW is going to have because if you think about it, they only have so much TV time to go. So this is why I've always been a big proponent of AEW having such a great relationship with Warner Media Discovery, because with that relationship, Rampage and potentially a new Saturday night show and all of these different things could lead to more TV time for talent who definitely need it. Now, the issue with AEW is that they do sign a lot of talent, but the issue really stems from them not capitalizing on that talent and not necessarily having the TV time to capitalize on such a big roster. Yes, I think it is statistically true that they have signed a lot of people, but when you think about it, talent who gets signed to the company only to be working, one or two matches on TV, then being moved to Dark for a while, then they finally come back to Dynamite in a singles feud, I think that's an issue. Juice Robinson is the latest example of this. We saw Juice Robinson get announced as All Elite. We saw him do some stuff on Dark, and then now he's all of a sudden setting up a program with Ricky Starks. That's a really tricky situation for AEW, and it's really tricky for Tony Khan because when you announce that Juice Robinson is All Elite, your goal should be to build momentum every single week. Now, here's the thing. If you want to compare WWE and AEW, this is one thing that WWE does that AEW doesn't do enough of. Not saying that they don't do it, but they don't do it too often. WWE brings in Johnny Gargano, Dexter Lumis, Bronson Reed. Whether they're wrestling, backstage segment, or a video package, something of some sort is pushing the narrative that that person is back in the company, right? We saw this with Karrion Kross. We saw this with quite a few returns. Even with Chelsea Green, she might not be wrestling every single week. You may or may not like Chelsea Green's gimmick, but the reality is WWE says, hey, Chelsea Green's back in the company. She shows up every single week on TV every single week. By the time that WWE actually has something to do for Chelsea Green when they're ready to push her, that, in my opinion, is where WWE does a good job, because by now everybody sees Chelsea Green on TV every single week. Winning or losing, that's a whole different question. That's a whole different conversation. But ultimately, the idea is to build some form of momentum every single week to be progressing and getting the crowd familiar with who the talent are. Now, in AEW's situation, that's not necessarily the case because Tony Khan is trying to get talent on television every single week. So now there's like this issue where every single week you see different talent every single week. Now, that technically isn't true in recent weeks. We're consistently seeing Hangman Page, Jon Moxley. We're consistently seeing, MJF, the world champion. We're seeing Hobbs now. We're seeing the Outcast, which I think is good. But this is something that you need to do every single time you introduce a new signing. Taya Valkyrie just got signed. She showed up on Dynamite. She's announced for Rampage. Great. Now what's going to happen with Taya Valkyrie next week and the week after? Because ultimately, if we're building towards a match between her and Jade Cargill, then it's really important that you remind the fans every single week that she is good enough for that title chase because she is on TV every single week. And we're going to talk about how AEW can fix this. But first, I do want to let you guys know that today's video is sponsored by Factor 75. If you don't know what Factor is, you can get fresh and ready meals delivered to your doorstep when you sign up with Factor. Factor chefs created meals are fresh, never frozen, and designed by dietitians to ensure every meal is packed with premium, science-backed nutritional quality. No more meal prep, no more dishes, and no more unhealthy fast food. Factors offers the most convenient way to eat well while eating right. I know a lot of people have talked about Factor in the past. One of the things that a lot of people enjoy about Factor is the convenience aspect, especially without, no preps, no mess. This is one of the reasons why I've decided to partner with Factor 75. And guys, the good news is you can get a huge discount right now just by using my link in the description. Use the link go.factor75.com and use code FACTOR SE32968 for 50% off your first box. Go ahead and check it out. I'll also have a pinned comment down below. So again, thank you to Factor 75 for sponsoring today's video. Guys, AEW is doing a great job right now building storylines, and I just kind of want to talk to you about how they can fix this consistently. One thing that AEW did a lot of in 2020 and 2021 was that every single week there was some form of ending that would kind of keep you wanting to know what was going to happen next. And I noticed when AEW was doing that, there was this huge intrigue every single week. This is something that Tony Khan has done in the past. I think if he actually does that more often, AEW will be in really good hands. Keep in mind, Dynamite is 2 hours long. Rampage is 1 hour long. There's rumors for a third show. Is the third show really going to make a difference for AEW? I don't know. I think that's a really big conversation to be had because Rampage right now barely makes a difference for AEW. But I think if AEW really did have a 2 hour Rampage and a 2 hour Dynamite, at the very least, I really do think the brand split changes the entire game for AEW. Because when you bring in talent and you sign talent and you have these divisions and you have all of these things going on, having a brand split really does change the way for people to be on TV. If WWE, and the thing is, I understand the argument, like some people say brand splits don't work. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think if you look at brand splits, the way WWE kind of does it right? Like the idea that Raw and SmackDown talent are separated by brand, but ultimately, sometimes storyline-wise, you might see talent on Raw and the same talent join SmackDown, right? Like, if you want to create that crossover appeal, you definitely can do so. I've said this before. I've said it multiple times. It's not a bad idea for AEW, considering that you can have your champions between both shows. You can have all your champions be on both shows, except for the TNT and the TBS champion, right? Those champions need to be on those respective brands, in my opinion. But other than that, I think champions should have 1,000% crossover appeal. They should be able to work both brands. But I think if you have talent that specifically work Rampage and talent that specifically watch Dynamite, I think in the long term, AEW will create such intrigue in their product that now it's really, really must-see to watch Rampage. Look at WWE Raw, for example. Cody Rhodes is on Raw. Right now, they're building towards WrestleMania. He's obviously competing for the Undisputed Championship with Roman Reigns. It does make a lot of sense for Cody to appear on SmackDown because ultimately Roman Reigns is holding both titles. He's holding the title that belongs on both shows. So this is an example of where it's okay to break the brand split rules, in my opinion. Now, Cody Rhodes, by going to SmackDown, is great, but ultimately the real value is that Cody Rhodes is on Raw. And if you really want to watch Cody Rhodes in WWE, you have to watch Raw. Now, imagine if Hangman Page was on Rampage and Jon Moxley was on Dynamite. You're not going to be able to watch Hangman Page on Dynamite. You have to watch Rampage for that. And Tony Khan, I think if he split up his rosters and had designated slots for everybody and really had that planned out, I think he can do a really good job of creating compelling stories for people to be like, hey, I know Rampage has a different time slot, but I'm really excited about this and it can work. Ultimately, that means Rampage needs another hour of television. I don't think this will happen, to be honest. I don't know if Tony Khan's plan is necessarily to ever do a brand split, but that is something I would definitely ask Tony Khan if I had the opportunity, because maybe a brand split could be the solution. So this way, when you have new signings, you can literally make it clear, like, hey, this person's been assigned to Dynamite, this person's been assigned to Rampage. Now you don't have this issue of, hey, this person hasn't appeared on Dynamite for 3 weeks in a row, right? They're only on Rampage. Okay, this week on Rampage, guess what? They get the match. Next week, they cut a promo. The next week, backstage segment. The next week, a vignette or something. And this way, because you have so much talent, you could shuffle through talent in a way that everybody gets the benefit from it. And I just think that is so amazing that you can literally solve a lot of problems by splitting up the rosters. Yes, that does mean you have to increase TV time for Rampage. I can't talk for Warner Media Discovery. I don't know if there would be interest there, but one thing that's really good about AEW is they have really good relationship with this company. The potential ability to have a third show, on Saturday nights, that's great. Maybe that could feature some of your lower card talent who aren't featured in big storylines. But you got to keep in mind, AEW also has Battle for the Belts. They have all of these different things that they're doing. They do cool stuff, but you got to have week-to-week storytelling. And lately they've done that, but long-term they have not. And that's the one thing that they need to do that would really change the game for them. I think it's really cool that Saraya and Tony Storm are working with Ruby Soho. I see a lot of people hating this, but the reason why I like it is because for so long Ruby Soho came in, it was made to be a big deal, and they did nothing with her. Now she's part of something that I think feels major. So imagine if you're doing that for everybody. Imagine if you're doing that for Taya Valkyrie. There's just so many things that AEW can do to really elevate the product just by splitting up the rosters. And I think that brand split is so... If they did it, man, I just think it would be a game changer. And I think Tony Khan would be really, really good. He would be doing a really good job with his company overall in terms of entertainment value, because then you can really go in and say, hey, for Dynamite, these people are on Dynamite. You're expecting to see these people on Dynamite. And you know that AEW can deliver that. And the one thing that AEW is really good at is offering surprise elements to their show. So imagine if you do sometime want to have that crossover appeal, anything can happen. Maybe have members of the Rampage roster invade Dynamite, and there's a lot of logistical changes that would need to happen in this company for this to work. I'm sure it's going to cost more money, right? It's going to cost double the budget. How profitable is AEW? I don't know. But the idea that, Rampage right now is taped at Dynamite. So there is a difference, obviously, logistically to make this happen. Is AEW able to cover the cost of that? I don't know. I can't speak for Tony Khan and his pockets, but I just think there could be a lot of benefits from this. I think this is the big thing. But to answer everybody's question, is AEW signing too many people? Absolutely not. I don't think that's a problem. Keep signing more people. Don't ever let the opportunity to sign the next possible best thing. Don't lose out on that opportunity. Sign the talent, but just do something with them. Capitalize off them. Make it a big deal. Don't just show the graphics saying they're all elite. Show that they're really going to be something special, and I think that right there would be massive. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.